Welcome, everybody, to the Speaking Up with Patrick Schilling podcast, the podcast that aims at expanding your horizon. You already guessed it. My name is Patrick, and I just love having great conversation with amazing people. So, bear with me as I present to you amazing speakers whose ideas may truly change your life. Alright, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. I am recording this intro pretty much on the go because I'm just too excited about what we got this week. I talked to the Ernst&Young Finance Woman of the Year 2018, Lena Förster. In her role, Lena inspires women globally to become the leaders they strive to be and to disrupt the hierarchies in just about any given industry you could think of. We talk about her vision of how she wants to empower young female leaders, about shattering the glass ceiling and changing institutions so that they can finally cater to everyone's needs. We briefly touch on the Me Too movement and how societal perception of gender and sex have changed fundamentally over the last 30 years, and then shift the conversation more towards her vision for the future of finance. Lena is a very passionate advocate for the need of human beings, even in times of AI and automation and job insecurity. Her views on the topic definitely gave me the much needed hope for all the changes awaiting us. It was an absolute honor talking to one of the most inspiring young women of our generation. So, without further delay, I present to you Lena Förster.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am here today with the Finance Woman of the Year. She's already smiling. I know she doesn't like that title too much, but it is what it is. Lena Förster. Lena, welcome. So
Hello.
Nice having you.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
I know it's so great that you took some time out of your busy schedule. I know you just started a new job and you just changed apartments and everything. Like, it's so great that you're taking the time for this.
Of course. I mean, I'm happy that it's finally working out.
Yeah, we've struggled a bit, haven't we? I mean,
yes, fair enough. Finally.
Yeah, a schedule as busy as yours, it's difficult to make time. All right, we're both starting to blush already, so let's change gears. Lena, tell us everything about you. What is your background? You've had quite the exciting life over the last couple of years. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I guess, I was very lucky this year because I took a chance and I applied for a competition in Germany organized by EY. Mm-hmm. And it's all about promoting more women in corporate finance, getting more women there, because actually right now the quote is very, very bad.
Yeah, I bet.
So many companies are trying to get more women involved, especially the big four. I mean, Deloitte is doing something. And so EY took their chance as well. And this was the first time ever they tried to get, such a competition going. Mm-hmm. And so I applied and I was just lucky to be invited.
Yeah, I'm sure it was way more than luck. Don't you be too humble over there.
Yeah, well, and so I was invited to Frankfurt, 2017, last year in November. Mm-hmm. And we were 13 girls from all over Germany. Mostly I was lucky to be invited from Dublin because at that time I was studying at Dublin City University.
Right. So they flew you down to Frankfurt?
Eventually they did, yes.
Nice. Good for you.
Yes. So I came to Frankfurt and I have to be very honest about that. At that point, everyone knows Big Four, knows Ernst&Young. But I just thought it would be a nice opportunity to get to know EY and what they're doing in corporate finance and especially in transaction advisory services. So I just took it as a chance, went there. 13 girls, we had amazing days with a lot of case studies and I was lucky to win. And when I won, eventually they told me that I'm going to fly to London for a global final.
Oh, so they had in-country competitions first and then the global one was in London?
Exactly. So 8 country competitions took place from Sydney to Singapore. Yeah, so all over the world, in the States. And so there were 8 country finals, and then each winner was invited to come to London to take part in the global competition this year in February. And so I went to London, actually the first time ever.
So only positives there.
Yeah, first time ever to London. And I didn't have a lot of expectations, to be honest. I was very intimidated by all the other participants. Great girls from all over the world with very impressive backgrounds, all native English-speaking girls, which I thought is still a thing for me. I think no matter how long you practice English and how hard you try, I don't think I'll ever catch up to someone who's a native speaker. That's just one thing I'm struggling with a little bit.
Hey, from one non-native to another, I think you're exceptionally close.
From you. Yeah, but still, that's something like I'm struggling with a lot, like not feeling as comfortable as I would be in German, like in my own
It's always kind of a natural disadvantage, right? If you have to assimilate, because with language, I mean, there's more than just actually remembering the words. There are also subtle cultural hints and stuff like that. So, but you seem to have navigated through that quite well.
Apparently, yes, I did. But still, this was something I was really thinking about a lot up front, that even though I might have good solutions or ideas, I can express them as well as someone else or one of the competitors. But so I went to London. We had again 2 very impressive days with a lot of different activities, different workshops, leadership. The whole leadership team of transaction advisory services of EY was there, so they flew in from all over the world.
Awesome.
You had the most casual conversations during dinner, like, "Hey, what's up?" Which I thought was again very impressive, because you can ask questions normally you're not able to ask in such a way, and you can ask people why they are where they are right now, not in such a formal way.
What did you, I just need to ask, what were some of the things you asked those people?
So I was actually talking to Julie Hood. She's the global head of TAS worldwide. A very impressive woman. And she actually told me, so I was talking about her, and she actually told me that she's still struggling with the fact that she doesn't have an original accounting background.
Really?
And I mean, this woman is so confident and so inspiring, and then still she has something, she's still, not totally fine with it, although she's doing a great job. So obviously she doesn't need like an official accounting statement for the fact that she knows what she knows.
Right.
Anyway, these kind of things. So I asked her, like, how do you manage work life? Like, what do you do with your 2 kids? Do you ever see them, or is it the nanny who's taking care of them all the time? She was like, no, actually, like, I'll try as much as I can with flexible working hours. For example, in the morning, like people, for example, get up earlier to have longer, like more free time in the evening and things like that. Like just ways how to make it work, especially for women. I think that's the thing, because you always hear, oh yeah, we're recruiting 50-50. But then out of a sudden, in the partner like level, they're just 15% left.
Yeah.
Where did they went all the way? Like, well, eventually they got kids or just decided to prioritize family over career. And I think that's exactly the problem. That's why Y is doing the whole event, because they want to address this issue.
Yeah, and I think, that is obviously a good point. And, it really shows the fact that they fly in all the leadership, is a great start. But in what kind of phase do you see the entire process? Like, was this more of a just let's try to explore this, let's assess what we can do better, or are they always like already in the stage where they actually make changes to the day-to-day business operations? Or I'm pretty sure you're the person who, is about to propose those changes, or how does that work?
Yes. So, the competition is definitely a first step in the right direction. So apparently, as far as I know, right now, EY is hiring 50-50 or tries to hire 50-50. Of course, it needs to match to, what kind of people apply and if they have the necessary skills, but they apply to do 50-50. Myself, I started just like 3 weeks ago in Dublin with EY in transaction advisory services, when we started 9 of us, and actually we're 6 girls, so
nice. All right,
worked out quite well.
Great.
But then still, like people, most of the time it's not the problem in the beginning, but the people, like the women, don't manage to succeed on the way. Right. Because at some point they just can't keep up, or something else in private life is happening. Yeah. So I think in general, from my personal perspective, first of all, of course, it's important to get the attention of the female students. Hey, there is corporate finance and it's an interesting career for young women, but then you need to keep the woman in the business.
Yeah, that's, something majorly important. And there's always, in that context, a buzzword almost that many people use, but I think very few people actually truthfully think through what that term actually means, the glass ceiling. And you've already mentioned some of the aspects, that are kind of involved with this dropping out or women prioritizing family at one point or another in their lives. But what is your definition of the glass ceiling, and what's your take on it?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think one thing which is just true. Like if you ask like two people if they want to take on a task and it's very challenging, a man would always raise their hand and says, yes, sure. And a woman would always say, yeah. Or if you ask them, like, do you have the skills to succeed in this thing?
Right.
Men are more likely to say, yes, I do. Even probably they don't, but they will make it happen.
Well, most certainly they don't. Telling you as a guy, most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, and women just are like more, they hesitate more. They're not as confident and they're more scared to take on a challenge. I'd say it's just something which is it's true. I mean, studies prove that. And I just think we need to change that. We have to give women more confidence and we have to prep them with the right skills without making them lose their own kind of way of doing things. Because in the end, what I think is also very important to teach young women that they don't have to act like men just to be successful.
Oh, I hope they never will.
No, but it's a very, very thin line.
Yeah. I mean, especially since, one thing is kind of the neurological structures and how that translates into women scoring differently on the big 5 personality traits, for instance, as men. The other thing is also the fact that, this raises the question of whether or not we actually want to change that. And my big concern is, and you've, kind of insinuated that a little bit, but my big concern is that in like kind of the paternalistic structures that we still have in some parts in corporate finance, but also like in other industries equally, or in politics, that women feel pressurized to adapt to kind of those male ways of behaving. And that is, what is your take on that?
Well, I don't.
Great. Okay.
I mean, there are certain things I think like, and I try to either in the whole competition I participated, in the internship I did in the meantime, and now at work. I'm me, and I'm not the person who always is super confident, and I'm not always tough, and sometimes I have a bad day and I probably can't hide it. I don't like to wear suits. I prefer dresses, and I'm fine with it. And no, it's just like, don't try to be someone you're not, because that's not going to work out, or it's very hard to always try. And I think that's the most important thing, to show that you can be how you are and still succeed with that. And I mean, in the end, we don't want to have more women in corporate finance that they act like men, because then in the end we have enough men. The thing is all about getting a more diverse work environment and to succeed and to achieve better results. And you only get better results if you have a diverse group of people in any kind of work environment, not just in corporate finance. And that doesn't work if you just get women, try to make them pretend or act like men.
No, definitely. And there are also, I mean, there's so many studies that just prove that, diversity of thought, of gender, of nationality, you name it, is one of the primary determinants for actually fostering innovation and for having, new ideas come up. I mean, a new idea exists in the second word 2 neurons in your brain make a new connection that had previously not been there. And that is just not going to work if, everyone thinks alike, or if women who, at this point are dramatically underrepresented in some of our most dominant industries in the world, will feel pressure to adapt to how men feel. And I think one of the aspects, as you mentioned, is, the individual level, the young, encouraging, optimistic women themselves, having to actually understand that you're really the ones to shape this, that you're the ones to take this forward. And how do you perceive kind of your friends, like your generation? Because for instance, if I talk to my mom, she would always say, hey, you are so lucky because the women your age, they're so fundamentally different, even from her generation. She always says you're more bright, you're better educated, you are more kind of you're actively seeking to achieve things. What do you think is kind of like your status quo of the females you interact with that are our age?
Well, I think nowadays women do believe. I think we are our own drivers of our own career, and in the end, it's what we make out of it. And it's not an excuse anymore to say, well, I didn't make it because I'm a woman. I just didn't get the promotion because I'm female. I think this is not an excuse anymore, which works because nowadays, now we get the support we need. So, yeah, I think like the women I know or who I met throughout the whole competition or who I'm working with right now, they're quite confident. They know what they want. And if someone doesn't pursue a career in executive level or in partner level, I mean, that's fine, right? Yeah. As long as it is by choice. Right. In saying, I prefer to have more private life or I prefer to be more at home with my kids instead of working long hours. But as long as it's a conscious decision and not just happened by accident or just because you didn't have the chance to get back to work and get back involved. Right. That's just for me the most important thing. And I think we do have the decisions. We just need to make them and we have to encourage them and we need to support each other. Yeah. And kind of rising this up from within, sort of like from the community, if you will. I think, I absolutely agree with you. That is probably one of the most crucial points with any, sort of underrepresented group in any social setting. I mean, be it women, be it other ethnic, minorities that might be underrepresented in some certain scenarios. So that is definitely one aspect of it. But I think there's also another aspect of it which we shouldn't overestimate, but at the same time also not take too lightly, which is actually the institutional aspect of it. You've mentioned that now you have the feeling that you actually have the choice to pursue your own career. But what is kind of your take on institutional discrimination? Be it, or do you think that there still even is such a thing as institutional discrimination in corporations and politics? What are your thoughts on that? Well, I mean, first of all, it depends from country. I think there are significant differences between countries and different areas. Right. So you can't put all under the same topic or wing. But I'd say coming from Germany, we do have the support actually nowadays. And I think we do. And I've never had the feeling in my whole life that I don't have the same opportunities as anyone else just because I'm a girl. But probably that's because I'm lucky and I had a very supportive family and a mom who always told me you can do whatever you want to do. No, maybe that's just that. But yeah. I think in Germany, like from my personal experience, I think we're ahead of the topic. We're very good at it. Whereas I talked to someone else who's from Dubai. Yeah. And of course the situation there is very different. So I think we're very lucky. Yeah, relatively speaking. I mean, someone growing up in the Middle East or in sub-Saharan Africa, I'm sure has an entirely different story to tell. But even within the Western Hemisphere, I think, over the last, if we take the last 30 years even, I'm not entirely sure how much, I'm sure you've heard about the Me Too movement. Yeah. And I know it's kind of like a topic that is talked a lot about, but since I have you here, I just had to take your opinion on that. This is something I actually looked up, and I'm quoting The Economist here, but in 1991, when Anita Hill, a female, accused Clarence Thomas back there, who is now actually a Supreme Court judge, of sexual harassment, what his defender, so pretty much the same situation as today with
Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, exactly. What Clarence Thomas's defenders actually did, and this is a quote, they smeared Anita Hill as, quote, a little bit nutty and a little bit slutty. And that was, yeah, I know, right? This is insane. And that was what, almost, like not too long ago, less than 30 years ago. So in that period of time, like how did you see the changes over the last couple of years that might have led up to the current Me Too movement?
Well, I mean, the changes have been significant, I would say, but still, I mean, there's still a lot to work on.
Right.
We're definitely not there yet. I mean, the numbers prove we're not. And I mean, the current movements do prove as well. But still, I think, I mean, it's a good thing that women do speak up and that we do fight for what we want and that we can be open about it and honest. But still, we're talking as a minority. We still have to fight for something which is not fully there.
Right.
Yeah, it's still a long way to go. But I think we're on a good way.
No, definitely. And I mean, how do you kind of view the entire Me Too movement in that light then? Because from my point of view, you know, this seems for maybe the first time, you know, since the bigger female revolutions back in the early 20th century or the late 19th century maybe. For the first time, this seems like something that actually has the capability to persevere, to still be there in, you know, 5 or 10 or 100
even more,
years. Yeah, or forever. So what's kind of your take on that? Like, how do you view that entire movement that's going on?
I'm impressed. I think it takes a lot of strength and courage to speak up like that. I was amazed by the amount of people who got involved out of a sudden. And I'd never thought it would take on, like it would end up like that so many people actually could relate to the whole thing, which just shows that not everything is as good as it probably seems from the outside. Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty cool, you know, from my perspective. I mean, I'm not familiar with, you know, some of the challenges that women face, but I do have, and as many other, you know, people, irrelevant of gender, I do have, you know, this inner kind of desire to just create as much societal equality as possible.
Totally.
And even from, you know, the perspective of a guy, like, I'm so glad that we're having this. I'm so glad that we're moving towards, you know, the 50-50 model, or kind of like the more, or the newer approach in the workplace. But from your point of view, we talked a little bit about what women can do to kind of, you know, encourage them. As a woman, what do you think man can do to kind of support the entire movement?
That's a good question. Well, I think it's very easy to support a woman in achieving her career, but it's very difficult to take over 50% in a household. I think it's always talking about how supportive a man must be, like how supportive a man must be in helping a woman to achieve her career. But the support, like how the support actually looks like, is very important, because if a woman is spending less time at home, for example, with the kids, someone else needs to spend more time with the kids. And I think even nowadays, it's still the stereotype that a man needs to earn the money for his whole family. No, but it's still something.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
And yes, exactly. And even if you talk with modern men, they're still like, yeah, but I kind of have the feeling I should, you know, be like the man in the house. And I think it takes a lot of, courage and a lot of, like, a very good partnerships to make women go to work without having a bad feeling about it, without feeling, oh my God, there's so many things I have to do at the same time. And then, because in the end, you can only work good and you can focus on your work if you don't have to feel guilty about anything else, or you have thousands other things in your head. So I think, but this is something which needs to change in the head of the man. And it shouldn't be embarrassing to take parental leave as a man.
Yeah.
Or it should be fine to say, well, I'm leaving Wednesdays earlier because I don't know, I need to go to soccer match.
Yeah.
But I think we're not there yet, that it's very slowly. I met like just my director. He took parental leave 7 weeks.
Cool.
It's something super rare. It's not like I hear this from many men, and I was very impressed. I said, that's great. And he said, well, my wife has 3 kids. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's still nothing common, although so many do have kids and still they often don't take parental leave. So I think it really needs to change something in the way we see things and men want to be perceived.
Right. We're, I mean, and there we really talk about, attribution kind of what has traditionally been perceived as sort of classical male and classical female.
Yeah.
And I think, that raising the kids, I mean, we all have the posters.
Stereotype.
Exactly. That's a stereotype. But I already have the feeling, at least from my point of view, that is something I absolutely agree with you. We're not even close to being there.
No.
But now it's getting easier and easier even for a man to kind of actively make that decision, because back in the days, if my grandfather, for instance, 60 years ago, if he would have told his friends, hey guys, I'm going to stay home and raise the kids, that would have been outrageous, right? That would have just been societally unacceptable. It would have been politically not supported even. In my father's generation, it would have been super rare, and it would have been still kind of unacceptable. If I, now 20, or not now, let's say in a couple of years' time.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. In a couple of years' time, when our generation is slowly starting to have kids, I feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I'm going to, stay home for 2 years and raise my children. And I think a big part of that is actually due to the fact that women like yourself are now kind of speaking up for themselves and kind of articulating their desire to no longer bow to whatever social pressure they feel to stay back home and kind of raise their kids. So that is an amazing kind of improvement that we're seeing there. But where do you see that headed in, like, let's say 50 years from now?
Well, my personal opinion on that is it should never go in either extreme. Like, personally, I think you should always try to somehow find a compromise. And women are quite in this movement of like, yeah, I'll go to work and I don't want to have to do anything at home. Whereas I think partnerships are always about like achieving something where both are similarly involved. Why not one person stays at home in a year and the other one does?
Yeah.
So both get to raise the kids, both don't stop working too long, that it really could harm their career, or they're not up to date with what's happening. And I think that would be a fair thing to just say, well, why not share this whole experience? I think it's great for the kids because they have both parents. And both parents could still keep on working. 1 year out of the job is not that long.
Yeah. Just
as an example. Where it's going, well, I hope that it's going in exactly this direction. Support at home, and then especially also support within the workplace from colleagues, and especially between women. I think so often we're very competitive, and we're very, if I don't get the position, I don't want anyone else to have it. No, or just like, that we're not happy for other achievements or for other one's success. But in the end, it's only about yourself, and you're only having your own race. So it doesn't if someone else is not performing, it doesn't make you better. So I think in the end, it's all about support, not just at home with your partner, but also within your whole family and with your colleagues. And it should be, in this direction. That's what I imagine what would be optimal.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
that would be beautiful. We'll see how that goes.
Fair enough.
If we ever live there, I just want to fast forward the time kind of and be there right away. But yeah, and there are a lot of technological changes coming up, that might kind of facilitate that. And obviously you work in finance now. and this is my attempt to kind of shift the conversation a little
Fair
bit.
enough.
Could have done a better job, but we'll just go with this. But you work in finance now, an industry that is obviously extremely, relevant when it comes to gender diversity, simply because as tech, for instance, is performing so poorly at this point in time. But on the other hand, it's also, an industry that is about to be fundamentally disrupted by so many new technologies. So how do you think, things like AI or, machine learning or the, other technological advancement, blockchain and stuff, will interplay kind of with that image that we just drew, of us having to work less hours, of us being able to take a year of maternal or paternal leave? How do you see the interplay between like the new technology and the state we are in right now?
So I think in general, with the whole development and technical disruption, we need to clearly separate between manufacturing and so on and services.
Right.
And in the end, what EY is doing, EY is actually advising people and consulting people. So I'm sure a lot of what I'm doing right now is going to be taken over by machines or whatever, IoT, artificial intelligence, within the next 10 to 20 years. Sure.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, that what I'm doing is a people's business.
Right.
And there are many things which can be replaced, but definitely not relationships and human interaction.
Right.
This is something which just can't be replaced. So, and that's actually EY's approach, which I thought was very interesting. They said, well, whatever the technical skills you need to complete the job, we can teach you. But what we can't teach you, or what you're already too old for, is like the right mindset, the right people skills, the way you approach things, how open-minded you are or not. So yeah, that's my opinion regarding finance. In the end, we're a people's business. We are. That's what we make money of. That's where our value is. It's not in crunching the numbers. This can be done by a machine, and so can eventually get the clients the machine and get it done. Yeah. But what we bring in, the value we do, is because people do have empathy and understand complex issues, and there's so much more. Like when you see the numbers, there's always so much more behind it, and this will never ever just be replaced easily by machines or anything else.
Yeah, I've read, I think, 2 interviews of you, and you're such a strong advocate for that, view on it. You like the social view. And I mean, we're a couple of blocks away, but I can hear about 600 Facebook and Google engineers just screaming out there and disagreeing with everything we're talking about. But we'll let them scream for now. But you're kind of, what you're saying is that, whereas we might be able to replace some operational aspects of our jobs, we might be able to focus more on kind of like the interactive part, like the empathy, or to kind of advise people or to just be there for people. And how is that going to translate to finance in particular, with, branches of local banks just closing? I mean, my grandma used to go to the same bank for 50 years probably, and then last year they just closed it down. How does the empathy and the emotionality and the direct contact play into that?
You know what I wrote my thesis about?
No, I have no idea. What did you write your thesis about?
What opportunities traditional financial advisors have in the age of robo-advisors.
I'm kidding. I knew that, of course. So tell us everything about that.
Well, so here's the thing. In fact, robo-advisors do manage to perform better than actual financial advisors do right now.
Right.
Just very rational. They are able to. But then no one wants to use them, actually, which is, well, I mean, yeah, because in the end, so I did a lot of interviews and I asked many people why they still prefer the traditional advisor. And it's all about human interaction and trust and just feeling that someone really understands the situation, can take complex issues into account.
Right.
This just can't be achieved by a robo-advisor so far. I mean, right now, robo-advisor is very simple. You get Well, it depends, but normally you get 10 to 20 questions about how risk averse you are, or what return on investment you expect, and so on. But you can't tell them, well, for me, it's very important that I'm not investing in automotive industry because I just don't like it, or I'm environmentally concerned, so I don't want to invest in certain companies which do, So you just can't. And there's so many things, and it's investing is such a complex topic, and robo-advisors are not there yet. And then again, it's not just the old people, it's also our generation still. It's still, if you have money, is something which you want to have a lot of security, you want to feel comfortable with, and you want to look someone in the eyes and say, hey, well, listen, here's the money I've earned, and can you please take care of it and make the most out of it while not risking anything, which is, of course, not possible, especially not nowadays.
God, if you know a financial advisor who does all that, you got to introduce me. I'm looking for that.
Yeah, but still, it's just something where we're not there yet. Totally, the development hasn't happened yet. People are not open to it, or not as much as they actually could be, considering the fact that we use internet and for everything else. Right. I mean, we're on our mobile all the time. We do internet banking all the time. Yeah. But then still, when you do investments, there's a certain threshold of not being comfortable, not feeling secure enough.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Like if you kind of scan the brain and then try to, I mean, I'm sure you must have written about that in your thesis too. But if you scan the brain and take a look at the areas of the brain that are involved into complex decision making, you would imagine that the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for rational decision making would be kind of like the captain steering the decision making, but that's just not the case.
No.
It's the emotional, areas of the brain that make the decision. And I'm absolutely with you. I think as of right now, a machine is not going to be able to, convey the same sort of emotionality to, both my grandma and myself when I'm sitting in the same room there. But a couple of years down the line, I mean, Google has just, I think a couple of months ago, introduced an AI that on the phone is indistinguishable from any human. Abu Dhabi, I think it might have been Abu Dhabi or Dubai, don't quote me on that, but one or the other, earlier this year just granted citizenship for the first time in mankind's history to a robot.
Yeah.
So with all this development in mind, based on the finding of your thesis, like where do you see this going? Like, do you think that at one point all, not only financial advisors, but at the end of the day, people will just be superfluous?
Well, so starting from the financial advisors, my guess is 80-20, typical Pareto. No, I think everyone will eventually go with robo-advisors, but there's still these 20% who have very complex requirements and a lot of money, and they can still afford it to have their personal financial advisor in a very traditional format. I think this is very representative for the general development we're going to face. Yeah, most likely. Well, but then I'm thinking, well, it sounds scary or it's very intimidating, but then I think if we're encouraging it and if we work hand in hand with technology and don't see it as a threat in general, like replacing our workplaces, because as I said, I don't think the work we might do can be replaced as easily.
Yeah.
And if we embrace it and work hand in hand, I think it could be a great opportunity. We could achieve just a lot more in less time and less effort.
God, that would be great.
Yeah, it would be.
Like having
hopefully.
Can you imagine having free time?
Yeah, well. No, but I think it's something which always the people are questioning, and I'm just thinking in the end it's going to happen either way, but the question is just your approach and how you address it. And I'm seeing it as as an opportunity, and I'm encouraging it. I mean, I try to get involved as much as possible with innovation and what EY is currently doing regarding all that. Especially, we're doing a lot with data analytics and so on. And I'm just thinking, well, this could make my life easier, and I could focus on other things.
Yeah. And actually things that are so complex that machines can't do them.
Actually, yeah, for now at least.
Yeah, so it's gonna free up some some creative space for us to actually innovate and think about, or raise our kids, or do whatever we actually want to do. But I'm curious, actually, I don't think I've asked you before. What is your job at EY actually all about?
So, well, it's quite complex, just because I started 3 weeks ago, and my goal was to start in. So the overall department is transactions, deals, and I always want to start in operational transaction services, because it's very hands-on. You have a lot of cooperation with the client. You help them a lot pre-deal, but also integration. It's very exciting. I mean, because it's not just that you're crunching the numbers in your own office and then you just present them, but you're really working together and try to find results for actual problems. Like, when we merge, like, how is our HR department going to look like? Yeah. How many people do we still need? And I mean, 2 companies become 1. So how is this going to look like? How many seats do we need in the office? And what are we going to tell our employees? And what about the legal department? And how many access do we need for Bloomberg? Like, the very important things in the end, because otherwise the company is not able to function on day 1 as they're supposed to.
Right.
But eventually, as a matter of fact, in EY Dublin, operational transaction services, as I know it from London or New York, is not existing yet. So right now I'm working in transaction support, due diligence, and I'm starting to build up operational transaction services with my director. So
wow, okay.
Let's see how this goes. We applied for quite some tenders. We pitched a lot, and I'm hoping that one of the projects will work out as soon as possible, because that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we probably can't uncover your entire strategical plans here for the next couple of years. But so you're actually going to start your career off by building up your own team and leading a department.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be, for now, a 2-man show. The director and me. And I'm going to support him as much as I can. He's well experienced. He knows exactly how the whole thing should look like in the end. He has a clear plan. And I hope I can support him as much as possible. I'm very curious of what is possible. We have a lot of support from London, because they have a huge operational transaction services team, so they know how everything works. So we go from there. And then, I mean, I have 3.5 years while I'm doing my accountant degree, or my chartered accountant.
Which, if I understood you correctly, is something you're just doing on the side? Like, does your day have more than 24 hours, or how does that work for you?
Well, yes, I decided to do my chartered accountant while I'm working, just because I believe right now we do have 2 bachelor degrees from our studies. And I do believe that nowadays, with only bachelor degrees, it's very difficult to succeed long term. Yeah. But especially, we have a very general business degree. Yeah. And I need the accounting background. I do need it in the daily business. Yeah. It's just I have a lack of knowledge, and it needs to be filled. And the sooner the better. And the chartered accountant gives me the opportunity to get the theory and the practice for the daily work I'm doing. Yeah. So that's why I decided, to do it as well, on weekends and in the evenings. And, let's see how this goes. I mean, so far 3 weeks, quite exhausting, but I'm ready to take on the challenge.
Awesome. Hey, I mean, I'm sure you're going to do great. And if you don't mind me asking, I mean, finance and accounting has always been something that, to me personally, has always just been over my head, like way too complicated for me. I think I'm too simple for that kind of stuff. But what got you fascinated with the topic?
Well, I think it's the combination of numbers and people. So I started my first internship and I did mostly HR, but also payroll, and it was so not satisfying. No.
All right.
Yeah, well, I thought, numbers, people. So what kind of numbers do matter? I always enjoyed interacting with people, but I also always liked numbers. So I thought, why not finding a way to get them both together? And actually, transaction advisory service just gave me a solution to my, not problem, but what I wanted. And I'm thinking, as long as you're enjoying something, and if it's like challenging you and you have the chance to develop, it's great. And so far, this is what it seems like and what I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But also I have to say, or I have to honestly admit, I think just coming out of a bachelor degree, you don't have to know 100% what you want to do with your life. Like right now it's cool and it's like what I want to do, but probably in 3 years time, I'm not so excited about it anymore. Or I discover something else, what I like.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking that EY is a company which is so big, like they give you the chance that if you find something else which you're super passionate about or very talented in, well, you can easily change.
Yeah.
They don't expect you to know with 24 what you're going to want to do with the rest of your life. And I think that's a good, advantage of such a massive company that it's so big and it has so many departments and service lines. It will take me forever to even get my head around all of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, well, for now it's great, but
Awesome.
Maybe it's not forever, but then I'll find something else and that's also fine.
Hey, constant reinvention of the self, right? And I'm sure, they're not gonna have any difficulties finding something to do for you. So in the time being, how are you gonna combine everything we've talked about for now? So we've talked about, how it is to work in finance. We've talked about, the future and how, AI might affect the industry. We talked about kind of your educational background and of course the fact that you are Finance Woman of the Year. So how are you gonna I know, I'm sorry, I had to say it one more time. Just casually dropping it. So how are you gonna interpret your role? What is your vision for the role? Like, where do you see your responsibilities with what you've achieved?
Well, so first of all, I was very lucky, and so of course I had so many people supporting me all along the way, mentoring me, giving me advice and like helping me out. So of course you feel like you don't want to disappoint the people, but in the end I'm doing it for myself. And I definitely want to get to know the whole transaction. I want to build up this department and I'm super curious about it. I want to get my chartered accountant. But then what is very important for me is actually just proving other young girls that it's not such an impossible thing. And that's very not easy to achieve, but it's possible to achieve.
Right.
And I mean, this year the competition is going to take place again in November.
All right.
And this year we're going to be 16 countries, as far as I know, participating. So from 8 countries to 16. So it's going to be way bigger than the first year. And I'm flying into Frankfurt in November, and I'm going to be there and support all the girls in the competition.
Very cool.
And help them to get through it. And I'll be in London for the global final again and support the girls as much as possible. Just be a mentor, just give them some tips and tricks. Just try to promote it as much as possible, because in the end we want to have we want to reach as many young students as possible, to get a diverse group of people and then another wonderful winner. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're gonna are you gonna give some sort of prep talk or?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
That's the plan. Make them ready for what's coming. But I think my prep talk is going to be I think it's like people always think there's like some kind of I don't know, like perfect way to do things or like a specific thing. But I think it's quite simple, actually. You just have to be yourself, always try to be authentic. Don't pretend someone you're not. Stay humble. There's nothing worse than arrogance, at least in my opinion. And I think, that proved me right. Try your best while not losing your own way of doing things.
Well, Lena, deriving from the amounts of times you've emphasized how lucky you were, I think you're as far away from arrogance as we are from an American president that actually knows what he's doing. That's another conversation maybe. Cool. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour, so I usually always do this. Is there, 2 questions for you? Let's start with the first one. If there is anything you wanted to say to our listeners, young females, young males who, try to overcome challenges that seem insurmountable, what would you tell them?
Preparation is more important than perfection. If you don't give your best, or if you're not preparing enough, you'll always ask yourself afterwards, what if? If you're trying your best, and if it just doesn't work, you still did your best. And perfection is not very interesting. Perfection doesn't get people, and no one's perfect. So just be yourself, try your best. And if you do make mistakes, everyone does, admit them. Yeah. Nothing worse than someone trying to cover up their mistakes, right? Yeah. we get those enough wherever we go. But no, that's great. I love that. And then, building up on that, kind of the second question would be, is there something, some book, some movie, some speech, some person that you found so inspiring that you want people to just take a look at it? Sheryl Sandberg. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, great choice. I'd say she's a very inspiring person. I read both her books, and she somehow achieved to have it all. I think her starting point was a very good one, to be fair. Not everyone has this kind of possibility to start in their career. She was very lucky when it comes to this. But still, she made the most out of it. And I think what she's achieved is, very inspiring. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, you heard it, everyone. Be authentic. Stay to yourself. Admit your mistakes, and be like Sheryl Sandberg, or like Lena over here. And maybe you'll become the next finance woman or man, or not even finance, just some sort of person of the year. Lena, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule, and I'm sure we'll hear many, many great things of you. Thank you, Patrick. It was a pleasure. Thank you.